Hello, Sonia Barrett here once again. And today I want to do a little talk, little chit chat on how you might be operating inside of a box and in denial. It's part of the human experience. It's part of what we do. It's part of what has allowed us to continue to have the human experience. There has to be a level of denial. It has to be operating on a foundation of denial and limitation, which is where the idea of operating in a box would actually come in. However, we don't view it that way. We typically don't view our lives in that manner. And sometimes when we figure it out, what we're seeing is we're only selecting certain aspects of how we're operating. We're very selective in what we choose to look at, what we choose to examine with our lives. And so we obviously we don't always see to what degree we're functioning inside of a box, or absolutely how limited we are, or how in denial we are. And the thing is this, that the other aspect of this is that we're so invested in the characters we play. We're invested in this fictitious version of who we think we are. And we typically don't want to let that go. We don't want it to be brought to our attention most of the time. We are selective on what gets brought to our attention, what we will own. So we are just incredibly funny creatures, very interesting. And yes, for myself, yes, I take that journey every day, all the time, sometimes moment to moment, of seeing the way I'm operating, really just stepping back and observing myself and seeing the moments where I'm in denial about the choices that I'm making, or the reasons I've given myself for the choices that I make. And so I thought, it would be a great idea to do this little video to bring that to your attention for those people, and I'm very clear on that, for those people who are in a space of really wanting to look at themselves and to discover those things that are saboteurs, excuse me, and hindrances in our lives. And a big part of doing that is, yes, having to look at those things that we are in denial about, all the reasons that we've given ourselves for our lives being the way it is, or for responding the way that we do, acting the way that we do, and putting it off maybe on someone else or other situations and circumstances. And so when anybody comes along and perhaps tries to point that out, we get defensive. And why do we do that? Because it's self-preservation. We are all about survival, and we're all about protecting ourselves. And so we don't want to, it's like this. We don't want anybody to come along and point out any of these things. We don't, because what is it that we feel? We're worried about feeling guilty. We're worried about feeling shame, or feeling stupid, or feeling inadequate. Somehow there is a lack that we are afraid of experiencing. And it's all part of this program, this social programming. So the fact is that who we are, much of the character that we have come to identify with, that thing that we say, it's just me, it's just the way I am, is really a composite. It's designed based on social programming. It's the construct, the guidelines and rules of this system that we live in. And understand that in your society, whatever society you're in, whatever zone or country you're in. Understand that some of those social programming and social protocols are going to be specific to your environment. And so you have been shaped based on this environment. And your family has played a very big role in much of the foundation that you have formed, as you know, that you're standing on anyway, as a belief system to support who you are at this time, whether it appears that way or not. And so we can look at some structures. Well, I'm Jamaican. I'm born in Jamaica. Obviously, most of you know this. I came here at the age of 13. So I know that Jamaicans, I tend to be very proud people. In Living Color used to make a joke about how many jobs they have, because they're very big on being, at least, responsibility. That was the culture then. Really big on that and working. And so there are these things that are specific to the culture. I also know that wherever we go, there's all these systems. There's these caste systems. There's these systems of your financial system. You're evaluated based on your family background, the money that they have, could be the very complexion of your skin tone. So many structures, your education, your level of education. And so, and of course, we can throw in religion as well, because that's another huge construct, so another huge matrix of its own. We get caught in these various protocols, these various programs, and we are shaped from that. And so we sometimes just don't realize how these programs, these whatever we identify with, how they have shaped this thing that we identify as ourselves, and the characters and the box that you're in. Now, another thing is the idea of even being proper. You have to be a lady, and you need to be proper, and you need to do all these things based on this construct. No, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be that. All I'm doing is pointing out the design, of how we are and how we've come to be what we are, based on all these other constructs that have been designed for us to give us some identity to be human, specifically in based on environment, based on the region that you're in, based on the part of the world you're in. Each one of them have their own unique matrix or system of protocols that defines that environment. And if you're part of that environment, then you should be reflective of the rules and protocols, and silent rules and protocols of this environment. And we all can acknowledge that, because we know people from different countries, and we see similar behavior. There's similarities in how they are. There's some cultures where we would say, gosh, they're so rude. They'll bump into you. It's sort of an aggressive type culture. So we see that this is true, that there are these constructs that become associated with a culture, and because of an environment, and we each have become part of that. So who are you? Who are you? When you stop and really look at yourself and all that you think about yourself, and this character that you have identified with and hold on to, who are you? I've heard people speak, and even the sound of your voice, the tone of your voice, it says a lot about you. And that's the reason why what's her name, Sherry Edwards, who deals with health, very cutting edge health, which with sound technology to deal with the voice, where they're able to detect diseases, know exactly what kind of illness you have based on the frequency of the voice, the voice patterns. The voice pattern can be very similar to another person with the same illness. So your voice is a printout as well of what's going on inside you, as to how locked up you are. And I have definitely heard that. I can hear by the sound of somebody's voice how they're speaking that they're in a box. They don't know they're in a box, but they are in a box, very rigid, very restricted, and can't figure out why life doesn't shift quite so easily. Why isn't life shifting? And it's because we're in that box. Now, is that a judgment? No, it's not a judgment. This is never, ever about judging yourself, or even judging someone else. There is observation without judging in that manner. Judging in the sense of determining whether this is good or bad, or light or dark. It's just an observation of oneself. And with that kind of observation, it makes it so much easier to know what to change in one's life. But the denial aspect is so very huge. We have to, if we say we want to change, we want transformation in our lives, how do we then get that? If we are in denial about the character that we have identified with, that we are holding on to, that has kept us in a box, kept us in this proper box, right? I talk about proper because, yes, culturally, and even in growing up, my family was, in terms of, yes, being proper and being a lady and all of that, which is wonderful. See, I can appreciate all of these identities, these programs. I can appreciate it. But to see, it's a difference to be able to stand back and appreciate the game from that standpoint. But when you are so invested that you completely don't get it and you believe this is who I am, that is a very different thing. You can't get to play and enjoy the human experience quite the same way because you're so caught up and hung up on the identity, the fictitious identity that you have, that you're holding on to, that you call yourself. But going back to denial, we have to stop. Only if this is something that you want to do, and really examine on those things that may stick out for you in your life, in the sense of asking the question, why isn't this happening for me? Why can't I move forward, whether it be in a career, whether it be financially, whether it be, spiritually? You have to go back and say, well, what is my belief? What is my belief? What have I told myself about these certain things? And you will know. Because if you're going to be completely honest with yourself, you're going to know, you're going to own it, that this is what I have told myself, that I must operate this particular way. That is something that we have to own. I've had to do that with tons of stuff in my life where I just sort of wipe the sleep from my eyes and go, oh my God, I'm doing this. I've restricted myself to operating in this manner. And nobody's responsible for that but me. So what do I do now? I then have to step away from that, because sometimes it's a way to play it safe. When we can target to one validation, to a particular validation of why we operate the way we operate, then we don't have peripheral vision and we just go full speed ahead on that particular validation. And that keeps us then from having to change, from having to look at the bigger picture. There's so many things that it keeps us from. It can sabotage movement because we're afraid of success. And we find ways to keep ourselves safe from progress, from certain levels of what we would define as success. And when I'm speaking of success, I'm simply speaking of fulfilling those things that we desire to fulfill in our lives. And a great many times we do sabotage ourselves, and we do it because we need to feel safe. We don't either have confidence that we can make our desire happen. We're maybe deep down we're not sure we can handle it. A lot of this can go back to your childhood, as to what you were told, that maybe you're just not smart enough, or maybe you're just not good enough, or you're not good at that. Nobody's going to be interested in what you have. And sometimes there's no words that are exchanged, but the vibe may perhaps in one's home. And as a child, we interpret things so differently. Children, because they don't have enough resources, they haven't been around long enough, that they draw their own conclusions based on the tiny bit of resources that they have to draw on to assess and interpret what was said, what a supposed adult has said. They don't know. So they draw on that, and then that becomes a part of the mechanism and the construct of reality for them, as to how they will design their reality moving forward. And that becomes what they believe about themselves. So this is why I am emphasizing on the denial factor in terms of our lives and how we're living it and the choices that we're making. And I was talking to somebody recently in a consultation, and we were laughing because I was telling her, I said, you know what? We are incredible liars. We are incredible liars. We lie to ourselves more than to anybody else. We lie so much to ourselves. We don't consider it lying to ourselves, but we do. I do it. I've done it. I've had to recognize that and see, oh my goodness, this is what I've told myself. This is what I've told myself. Okay, well, I've got to change that. And after a while, what happens is as they say, you start believing your own lie. You tell it so much. And what that lie generally is, a lot of times, it is it's how we would prefer the world to see us. And so we construct, whatever it is around the subject matter. We construct a truth around the subject matter, and that's what we present, and then we begin to believe it. And then of course, then we have the mask that we wear on top of that. And what does this all do for you? What does this all do? Ultimately, what happens? You choke. You choke. How do you choke? A lot of times people get sick. They don't even know why. They have diseases, they have illnesses, and you don't associate it with that. It's not just the food. It's not just the food. It's everything I'm saying to you right now. It's all of this. And I tell you, I had a situation that really sort of triggered this dialogue. Because in one way, I did, even though I know everybody must do what they need to do, I did feel some sadness, because I saw that this person had no clue that they had created this box for themselves, and that they had been they'd made up this story for themselves about why their life was as it is, or why they weren't moving forward. And you could not tell that person. You couldn't say anything. And many of you will say, yes, I know somebody like that. Maybe we've all done it in some form or another. But I have met a lot of people on this journey, people who take my workshops and so on. that are incredibly open, and the only thing that they want is to free themselves more and more and more from these identities, from these programs, from this fictitious identity that they've created, that without realizing they created it. And it's not, again, this is not about wanting to escape. I'm always having to be clear on that. We are not talking escaping. We're not talking hating this reality. We're not talking any of that. We are talking emerging from the fire, emerging from all of this, transcending, becoming greater than the human game, and appreciating the experience in it, regardless of what appears to be going on in the game right now. But what I can tell you, in the game, whether politics, religion, racial uprise, racial killings, all of that, what we have are themes that play out in this reality. We have themes that play out. And obviously, yes, there's so much more to that understanding than the topical version that is heard on in the media, or even in conspiracies have their limitations. Those are all topical interpretations of what's really going on and how we've arrived in that place. But I think to recognize that this reality is all about various themes being played out, and what your relationship is with that theme based on your emotional engagement with that theme as it's being projected on the screen of so-called reality. That is what this is going to be about. How do you grow from this? How do you expand from this? Because it's very easy to become really plugged in and become part of the fear. So there is so much more there. Yes, there are things, you say on YouTube that you can express on YouTube, but at the same time, I realize that there are things that I choose not to say on YouTube. And one main reason is for it to be misinterpreted. Live, yeah, but not being misinterpreted, because once it's out there, you can't change that. You can't try to reinterpret it, because people hear what they want to hear. We are not all hearing the same thing all the time, and we need to understand that. We don't know that we're all seeing the same thing all the time. We don't know that we see colors quite the same way. There's much that we need to just acknowledge, that if things are not necessarily happening the way that we think they're happening. This is a moving train. Reality is in constant motion. It's always moving, and so are you. But you have the illusion, however, of standing still, of a static experience. But it is always in motion. So because it's in motion, you have an opportunity always to determine the choices you're going to make and the relationships that you are going to have with reality itself. When you determine the kind of relationship you want to have with the reality experience, that is going to determine the people that either go away from your life or come towards your life, because they are resonating, they are more in alignment with what your reality is going to be about. And that's why you want to own what you are really about. You want to not be in denial, because the denial will simply keep a lot of these programs in your subconscious mind. And from your subconscious mind, you're going to be making choices and you don't even realize. You don't even realize. Subconscious mind is based on all the beliefs that we have about ourselves, all the non-truths that we have about ourselves, all the things that we do think is true, all the fictitious character, everything about the fictitious character. all there. So it's very important that we are as truthful with ourselves as possible. You lose nothing. You lose nothing. It's okay to just drop the armor. It's okay to let go and to see. Don't spend your time just blaming, other people and getting, your feelings hurt. Yeah, in the human body, yes, there's a moment where you're upset. Okay, fine. But then you go back to realizing who you are, that it really is just, all of that is made up and has nothing to do with you moving forward and your evolution. If anything, it is a stepping stone. Everything does provide us with a stepping stone. And we recognize that, and we use it to look at ourselves. We always use everything to look at ourselves and just reassess and see where we go from there. Anyway, that's it. I didn't know to what degree I was covering any of this today, but I sure hope that it benefits someone out there, and maybe might just be what you needed to hear right now. For me, everything I talk about is always what I need to hear as well. So make no mistake about it. I don't separate myself from the things that I share. I recognize that because I'm always growing. I'm growing, and I continue to expand, and I just share. So anyway, I want to remind you, my website is therealsoniabarrett.com. And for those of you who might be interested, there's a retreat for 2017 already on the website. Check it out and see if it's something you might be interested in. And one more thing I want to say. I'm probably going to put a prerequisite there, because I got to tell you, people watch me on YouTube, and sometimes for some people, it's what they hear, they love it, but it's safe. When you come to something live, or you deal with me in a webinar, I am very raw. There is no new age sugarcoating. There is no fluff. I'm just telling you, because I've had a couple people where it was, there's no fluff. So if you're good with just being open, if you're good with that and you don't want the fluff, then you're welcome. But I suggest you explore more of my work. But I don't want fluff for myself, and I don't deliver that to other people. I don't give you woo-woo stuff about ascension, just stuff that feel good stuff. I'm about diving in and looking at what it really takes to be more than I am at this time, more than you are at this time. What does it really take? And not just about discovering a little bit of information and then, I'm okay, I just plan for my death. No, it's much bigger than that. So I welcome people who are okay with being outside, stepping outside of the box, because most of the people that are there, 99% of the people that ever come, are people who are just outside the box and are ready for more, and are doing more. So that's the retreat. And any other webinars that I will be doing will be posted there. But all the webinars that I've done are always available in the store on my website. All the everything, all the lectures that I do, everything I do is recorded so that people can have access to it, because I never do the same workshop twice. I do it and it's over and it's gone. I don't travel around giving the same workshop. So I record everything, because we're growing, and as we grow, I move on. Move on beyond whatever I talked about the other day. Now I'm on to something else. So anyway, it's therealsoniabarrett.com. And if you have any questions, do check the website out, or email me at soniabar@yahoo.com. Is there anything else I need to cover? I think I pretty much covered everything. All right. Well, it was great chatting with you. And till next time. See ya.